Everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're here today to talk about Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, the newest film from director Jane Schoenbrun, known for We're All Going to the World's Fair from 2021 and I Saw the TV Glow from 2024. And this one is very much a love letter to the 80s and a little bit 90s, but especially the 80s camp slasher subgenre that a lot of people making movies in Hollywood right now sort of grew up on, especially in the horror genre. So this one is a mashup of a few different franchises, but particularly we see a lot of Friday the 13th influence here and some sleepaway camp, including the word sleepaway camp said at points. The sign for Camp Miasma looks very much like the sign for Camp Crystal Lake. The killers resting at the bottom of the lake is very Jason Voorhees, all those types of things as well. And we learn that our villain here, named Little Death, which Little Death is in French, orgasm, which is a very literal translation of what this movie is talking about, right? This movie is all about coming to terms with who you are, accepting the desires that you have, and to stop being somebody viewing the movie of life and become a participant in it on your terms. And so it's really Schoenbrun's way of them talking about the good parts of transitioning, and all three of their films at this point have been about different points in that journey. I Saw the TV Glow was sort of about the fears of beginning that process, and this one's very much about kind of the good parts and the good things that can come from doing it. So that's what we see here. But our killer in this film, Little Death, is at the bottom of the lake and very much designed half Jason Voorhees and half Angela from Sleepaway Camp. So far as like the killer is kind of like gender curious or transitioning themselves. They spend half the days of the week as a boy and half the days of the week as a girl, and are made fun of and mocked ridiculously at the camp for doing so, and then drowned in the lake a la Jason Voorhees, and comes back to haunt victims at the camp throughout time. And the star of the original film, named Bobby, who's played brilliantly here by Gillian Anderson. Bobby retired from filmmaking after this first film that came out 35 years prior to the events of this one. And Bobby since moved to the camp that was the set for the original Camp Miasma. Now the series is getting rebooted, and they're bringing in a brand new, fresh-faced director to put a new spin on the franchise, make it sort of more elevated horror, and that is the character Chris, played by Hannah Einbinder. And Hannah is sort of struggling with her own identity. She feels as a spectator in life and less of a participant. She's kind of the classic, like, film school kid that's always, like, calling out the things in the movies that are happening, and kind of being smarter than the movie, but never actually being part of the story. We see that transition early on. And this film is very much about Chris's transition. It's a little heavy-handed, but this movie teeters on the edge of heavy-handed throughout it. But we see Chris early on watching one of the sequels in the series in her hotel room as she's getting ready to meet with Bobby at this camp to do research for the film. And Chris, falls asleep while doing it, but before she does, she writes down the word desire and underlines it as like a central theme of what's happening in the film. And it's the type of thing that, like, film students would do, or I might do on this channel. But it's like observing desire and talking about it while not really ever embracing it yourself. And after she meets Bobby, Chris is on this journey now, discovering kind of what she really wants and what makes her happy and how to achieve that, and to stop wanting to observe it and start becoming a participant. That all happens throughout the film. We'll get to exactly how that happens here at the end. From a slasher standpoint, if you're just a horror fan looking for a good time, there are a couple good sequences in this film. I will tell you, this is going to turn out people that are looking for like a straight Friday the 13th film or even sleepaway camp type thing. It's not that. It's definitely more elevated than that. And it's going to turn some people off. And it's going to turn some people off in some other ways too. You're going to hear the W word thrown around in negative comments from people who can't phrase an otherwise, coherent thought on exactly why they don't like the film. I think maybe what some of them are trying to get across is they went in expecting something that it's not, and that means they probably should have read the description a little better. before going in. However, if you're looking for a really good kill sequence and horror sequence, there is an outstanding sequence in this film set to Long December by Counting Crows. And it is most of it's done in one shot, one take. It's fantastic. It is a really great slasher gore. It's super over the top, but it's meant to be. It's definitely a callback to that 80s era Friday the 13th type thing. But it's absolutely fantastic. And I don't want to ruin it. You should absolutely see the film just for that sequence if you're sort of on the edge of whether or not to go watch this film. But that is reason enough for me to recommend this one to everybody. Now, the themes that are going on here, if you like Schoenbrun stuff, you kind of know what you're getting into here. And they're no different here in this film with their themes and the things that they're talking about here. It's I saw the TV glow in terms of its kind of abstract way of talking about things, but also once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. This one though is a little more just upfront about it. And like I said, it sort of teeters on the edge of being heavy-handed, but I feel like that's a little bit intentional just because that's sort of the nature of some of these films that it's paying homage to. In the end, and here we're getting into a full spoiler, so if you don't want the ending of the film spoiled for you, skip ahead to the review portion. If you do, if you've already seen it and you want a little more explanation on what the hell's happening there at the ending, here it is. So at the end, the characters actually die. They fall victim to little death. But it's a little death. It's not the big death, right? So Gillian Anderson's character Bobby's helping Chris achieve this sense of being part of the story now rather than watching it from afar, and embracing this desire that she has rather than watching other people do it and talking about it. So to do that, she has to step out of herself, and she observes herself through the killer's eyes, through Little Death's eyes, as he makes his way into the cabin and takes out everybody else that's in her life, the agent that wants to argue with her about the direction of the film, the producers that want to argue with her about the direction of the film. And her roommate's really weird, sort of third wheel Thor, takes out all those people. And I think it's just saying that you have to eliminate all these things in your life that are sort of holding you back from being the person you want to be and accomplishing the things that you want to do. And then you need to kill the part of yourself that was stopping you. And that's what happened. When Chris is in the twin bed in bunk number 5, she's got Bobby with her kind of spread across the top of her, and Little Death makes his way into the cabin and drives the spear through both of them, killing them both and ending the movie, the sequel, but not their story. This is kind of a rebirth for them, and it's the beginning, for Chris anyway, of the rest of her life and being able to finally come to terms with what she wants and then going after that and embracing it. And I think that's really shown well. Afterward, Chris and Bobby go to this gas station and they're buying up all the candy, but the gas station is where Chris's journey here started. She stops at the same gas station on the way to see Bobby, and you can see the difference in her between those times. And I think she just feels much more liberated, much more free, and much more comfortable in her own skin at that point in time. So she is not just knowing that the killer is going to return, she's actually in a way sort of looking forward to it now, because she embraces those things that are going to come, because she knows that she's comfortable with who she is now. So that's the end of the movie explained. Overall, it's a really good film. Let's score it quick and tell you whether you should see it in theaters or wait for it to come on video. Here we score things in 5 different categories and an overall score on top of it. So for story, I went 4 out of 5 here. I think it's a pretty solid story. There are some moments where people might roll their eyes a little bit. And there are going to be some people that just for stupid political reasons or whatever, are just super turned off by this. And their loss, I guess that's fine. Themes, I went with 4 as well. I think a really strong stuff. Schoenbrun's known for that. The movies never really miss. They're just not easy to pick up on for people that aren't kind of used to really being able to dig deep into meaning and metaphor and all that type of stuff in films. The technical aspect, another strength for Schoenbrun, I think, and this is a 4.5 for me. I think it's very strong. So definitely 4.5 on that part. The horror, I went 3.5. It would have been lower just because of the lack of pure horror sequences, but the one scene that I kind of told you about, the sequence, I should say, the long takes with Little Death making his way through the very first film, outstanding and worth the price of admission on its own. That makes the overall score for Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma a 4 out of 5. I think it's a really solid film. It could have been a little better in spots, but I think that it's much better than the detractors are saying, and it's probably almost as good as a lot of the reviewers that love it are saying. I walk away from this thinking it's definitely a top 10 horror movie of 2026 for me at this point. It's not quite in the same ballpark for me as a film like Obsession or Leviticus or maybe even Hokum. It's probably right on the same level for me as like a Hokum or a Backroom. So that's where I'm at with Teenage Sex and Death with Camp Miasma. Let me know what you thought of the film in comments. Give this video a like if you want to see more horror reviews and horror breakdowns. We're going through the entire Friday the 13th series right now in the lead up to Crystal Lake. So the first two retrospectives are out on the channel right now, and the third one is on the way with other Jason deep dives coming as well as other things on It and Pennywise and all that as we start to look forward now to season 2 of Welcome to Derry. So with that, thanks so much for joining. We'll be back next time. Until then, stay out of the lake, everybody. Stay scared, and we'll talk to you soon.